So, good morning, everybody, and welcome to this workshop on ICT services for post-COVID-19 blue tourism in the Mediterranean region. And my name is Massimo Caccia. I'm the coordinator of the BlueRoses project that is funded in the framework of EASME, EMFF. And this workshop has been co-organized in cooperation with other projects that are the CSA BlueMed, the Interreg Mediterranean project Mistral, and the BlueMed assistance mechanism. And I would like to thank also Margherita Cappelletto, Tiziana De Nittis, Attilio Raimondi, and Stefani Vella for supporting myself in organizing this workshop. And which are the main motivations? We saw in during the BlueRoses project, BlueRoses has the main goal of implementing multidisciplinary approaches for an innovative partnership between maritime stakeholders to drive innovation in the blue economy, and in particular to understand if ICT and robotics can provide innovative services for marinas and leisure boats. And in this context, we had in the project a pilot on tourism that foresees the remote access to naturalistic and all cultural underwater sites, and in particular using an unmanned underwater vehicle, an ROV, that can be teleoperated from smartphones of people everywhere in the world to guarantee remote access to Ocean Revival underwater park in Algarve in Portugal. We started the project, and then during last spring, there was the COVID-19 outbreak. And so we asked ourselves a question, because we were designing and developing technology to support sustainable touristic access to coastal areas in a scenario of worldwide growth of the tourism sector. But then COVID-19 stopped everything, and we would like to check if the design and develop technologies for support tourism safety can support tourism safety during pandemic, while contributing also to change touristic offer in order to make it more resilient to unforeseen emergencies. This was the basic question that in some way originated this workshop, and we tried then to involve other European projects that in some way are connected to this topic, and also we contacted touristic operators to understand which have been their issues, problems, opportunities that they identified during last summer. So this was the BlueRoses approach, and I would like to leave the scene to my colleague Margherita Cappelletto, who will talk you about BlueMed. Please, Margherita.
Thank you, Massimo. Welcome, everybody, and thank you to the co-organizer and the panelists for the very active participation and the co-design of this first workshop, joint workshop. I am Margherita Cappelletto from the National Research Council of Italy since 2016, managing the BlueMed coordination and support action, which provides support to the intergovernmental research and innovation initiative BlueMed, devoted to the development of the blue economy in the Mediterranean area. Following a long consultation process that led to the publication of the Strategic Research and Innovation Agenda, we recently launched, and next slide please, Massimo, the BlueMed implementation plan, which focuses on 13 priority goals. one of them is clearly addressing tourism, and it's particularly framed in this way, linking tourism, tourist and environment. According, next slide, please, to the, let's say, structure of the implementation plan, we think that this workshop is a way to promote the first seed, to seed the follow-up and the building of strategic action that we can develop together. I will not take more time on this since the constraints we have, but of course you can explore more about the BlueMed implementation plan in the information provided and the link. So thank you very much. And we can leave the floor to our colleague, Tiziana.
Good morning, everyone. So my name is, yes, hi. Thank you very much for inviting and involving in this initiative. So my name is Tiziana Denitis, and as said before, so I work for Emilia-Romagna region, and I'm the project manager of Mistral project. Mistral project is a project basically focusing on innovation towards SMEs, enterprises, and the main goal that we are trying to perceive is to unlock innovation potentials, because compared to our other cooperation area, MED has a lot of opportunity, but is still lacking behind compared to innovation performance in other European areas, such as the northern one, for instance. So Mistral is quite representative of the MED area, because as you can see, we are a big partnership. Our partnership is composed by a total of 14 entities, and we have also 9 associated partners. In the map, you can see where we are more or less located, and different kind of institutions are involved: the public, private, research centers, and also technology agencies that work on a technology transfer and so on. Yeah, you can go on. Thank you. The next slide. To give you, so basically a very short overview about what the project is about. Here you have a kind of a summing up scheme. So basically, being a very long project that is going to, well, in total is about 48 months duration. We are just in the middle of the implementation of it, and here you can see the key work packages. So we, being an integrated project approved within the MED program, we can implement different kind of actions. So from studying to testing, transferring, capitalization, and apart from management and communication. So what we have achieved up to now is the complete implementation of the starting phase in order to get all the information concerning enabling factors in all the 5 subsectors of the blue economy. And right now we have just completed in the testing phase some key actions: business plan competitions at national and international level, and matchmaking events. So our next steps will be then, if COVID allows us, to then have events possibly live with the learning labs, international and national. Okay, I think that I took too much time. So follow us, and you can find all the information on our website. So thank you very much, and sorry for if I took too much. Thank you.
Thank you. So I'm Stephanie from the WestMED mechanism. I'm specifically representing the national hub here for Malta. I would really like to express my gratitude towards the organizers, the rest of the organizers of the event, because if there was ever an important time to organize a seminar, an online seminar, it's never been as evident as is today. I mean, it's become extremely evident that the sector, particularly the tourism sector, is extremely vulnerable. COVID has definitely shown us the extent of the vulnerability of the sector, because it has literally become paralyzed. It's basically estimated that Europe is losing about over €1 billion in through tourism, turnover through tourism, which is quite a substantial sum. And obviously there's quite a lot of employment which is dependent on the tourism sector itself. And therefore, if, as I said, if there ever was an important time in terms of focusing on how to build the resilience of the sector, on how to build specific policies and specific actions on how the sector can become much more resilient and can withstand shocks, there's never been a better time. However, having said that, we also know that an isolated approach towards building these solutions is typically not effective. And that is why it is so important to build partnerships. It's important to build partnerships to find effective solutions, but it's also very important that we also identify lessons and learn from each other as well. There's no need to always invent the wheel. The tourism sector is the tourism sector, while different countries might be focusing on different niches of the tourism sector. At the end of the day, it is the tourism sector, and therefore there are definitely lessons to be learned and no reason to reinvent the wheel. And I think that specifically, that's why this webinar is particularly so important, because the support which is offered by the BlueMed, as explained by Margarita, as well as by the WestMED Initiative and by the two respective programs, but by the two respective projects which are also ongoing, are really a testament to this. Specifically to the WestMed assistance mechanism, our role within the grand scheme of things is basically to advise and assist stakeholders in the setting up of projects. So we try to do this across, not only across the members which are part of the WestMed assistance mechanisms, but we try and look wider as well in terms of the identification of project partners in order to set up projects across various areas. So with tourism, aquaculture, a number of them. And as I said, it's very important that the synergy which is becoming evident through today's webinar is also extended even further. That's why in December we intend to also organize another seminar which will focus intently on the strengthening of ties, as well as identifying opportunities with our southern partners, because there are a number of southern partners also with WestMed mechanisms. And the objective of the webinar will be to suggest potentials for the follow-up and the capitalization of such projects, as well as to address the emerging challenges and opportunities for the sector in order to ensure the sustainability and the resilience of the sector across the Mediterranean. And with that, I thank you.
And thank you. Next speaker will be Ramune Genzibigelite, by policy officer, with policy officer for tourism in EC. So please, Ramune, your presentation is now shared in the screen.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you, Massimo. I'm connected only via audio. I was not able to connect with the video, so I will rely on your help with the slides. Thank you for inviting me to present tourism, European tourism situation today, and put your work in the context of our policy at the EU level. I would like to tell you, you might have heard a term of ecosystems, of industrial ecosystems. This is important to put in the context because at the European level, we're considering all the industries, including tourism, in a more integrated approach. It is a policy tool that helps us to bring all the players operating along the value chain. And for tourism, that is very important. And it's really for the first time that we have such a broad look. It has helped us already to identify the difficulties in the COVID crisis, for instance, and we hope that it would also help us to see the investments in the recovery in the long term. You might have heard of such examples that rely on this policy too, such as industrial alliances on the batteries, plastics, and recently the Clean Hydrogen Alliance. So in this context, tourism ecosystem is one of the 14 identified ecosystems, and we talk about core parts of it, that is passenger transport, tourism and travel operators, accommodation providers, hospitality and leisure, exhibition and trade fairs, attractions, etc., etc. So it's quite broad, and we try to address this issue in a very integrated way. And of course, it's affecting, as you know, other areas such as mobility, construction, culture, creativity industries, retail, agri-food, etc., etc. Now, the COVID, of course, has hit very strongly tourism industry. It is probably facing the gloomiest outlook if we compare to other services industries, regardless the fact that it is very important in the economies of European economies, with as many as 10% contribution to the GDP and 12% to the EU employment. We see an average of 70 or more now with the second wave of COVID. Of course, it will be worse, of drop in the businesses, and we are estimating at least 6-7 million jobs at risk in Europe today. There are a lot of liquidity problems. Many businesses have not managed to open, so the situation is really worrying, and I will explain to you in the next slides. Maybe Massimo, if we can go. I'm jumping quickly, so I don't waste too much time, to the slide of the COVID impacts in the ecosystem with the graph. Yeah, there we see the situation really reflecting between February and June and the summer on different subsectors in tourism. So it's an illustration. Some estimate actually that the full recovery will be quite long, from 2 to 3 years, although previous types of crises, such as terrorism crisis, SARS, in some regions have shown a quicker recovery. This is a different situation, and we are all learning. So, as you know, in Europe, there is a slide on what we have done so far, how the Commission has helped. Slide 7, please. I would like to say a few words how we have addressed this crisis at the EU level and what tools we have. So first of all, we have tried to save businesses and jobs by allowing flexible reallocation of structural funds that were remaining under CRI instrument, by launching a new instrument, SURE, which has helped to save employment in the member states by covering costs of short-time work schemes. We have opened up temporary state aid framework where tourism and travel has benefited from more than 200 state aid schemes in the member states. We have a tool, React EU, which gives additional 55 billion euros on top of the existing cohesion funds. This is still being negotiated by member states. And secondly, very important aspect is the coordination, of course, a coordination among member states to make travel and tourism possible. Again, to coordinate not only essential data and health situation, but also restrictions and opening the borders. If we can go to the slide 7, now we have also the financial tools to support the recovery. You have heard of the Next Generation EU that brings unprecedented support to the member states and businesses. We have also a revised financial perspective for the coming 7 years. So this, we hope, will not only address the short-time needs of the crisis, but will also direct the businesses, the industries in the strategic goals of green and digital transition, of the new skills and the resilience. Next slide, please. We are working towards a sustainable recovery. So actually, what can we do next? We think that we have to see a balance between the short-term needs and the long-term perspective at the EU. So to restart tourism while adapting to the new normal, we need to, first of all, build the confidence among the citizens, the tourists, the consumers, and to stimulate the demand. And we are doing this, again, by coordinating approach of travel restrictions. The Council has adopted in October the common criteria and thresholds, the color coding framework for the countries. So we hope this will help to plan and to predict for the countries, for the industries, and for the citizens. We need to have an easy access to reliable information, sanitary protocols for tourism businesses, and promotion campaigns that we have been trying to boost, to reopen the tourism businesses during the summer. Secondly, we need to restart the tourism ecosystem by protecting businesses and jobs, by building economic resilience for businesses and regions, and enabling green and digital transition and innovation. It is important to have a resilient workforce. We will have a European skills agenda and the new pact on skills, which will bring all the stakeholders, private and public, with the same objective of reskilling and upskilling tourism workforce to be ready for this twin transition. So all these are, let's say, objectives for tourism policy. They are very much integrated, of course, into the common goals of the Green Deal and digital transition and the skills. The next slide, a way forward to European Agenda for Tourism 2050. This slide basically sums up our strategic priorities that I already mentioned for the tourism ecosystem. And the next slide on European Recovery Plan, slide 11, please. It's a summary for you to have in mind when the recovery plans will be prepared, to have in mind what is there at the table. And the next slide, a few words on financial investments needed to restart tourism. Slide 12, please. Here, the Commission has issued some guidelines for the Member States while preparing the recovery plans. It's important to keep in mind these flagship areas, as they call. There are 7 flagship areas, priority areas, how we have to design the recovery plan. So, first of all, it is powering up, renovating, recharging and refueling, connecting, modernizing, scaling up, reskilling and upskilling. Again, this is in line with the overall goals of the long-term objectives for the EU, but build on these flagship projects, keeping those in mind. The investments that we see for tourism, for example, is investing, first of all, in clean mobility and emerging trends such as night trains and recycling for sustainability, updating infrastructure in tourism, improving energy performance, developing circular business models, creating incentives for developing sustainable tourism destinations, so there are plastic-free, carbon-neutral destinations, adapting climate change and mitigating the risk for seasonal destinations such as ski resorts or the sea resorts as well. Diversifying is very important of the tourism product by investing in less known destinations with high potential and diverse forms of tourism. Developing innovative solutions such as contactless services at key travel hubs or digital access to tools in hotels, high-tech solutions for sanitization such as robotics. It is also important to provide tailor-made support for tourism destinations in a member state. So we have to create a network of smart destinations and a data-driven tourism. A way forward towards European Agenda for Tourism brings together all the players, and we had the last slides, please. European Tourism Convention that was hosted by Commissioner Breton. This was a first step, actually, to build this roadmap to our strategy in the next coming decades. And we have to say that stakeholders largely shared the common vision and goals, how we want to arrive there, to sustainable and resilient tourism, and what ingredients are necessary. They have proposed concrete actions for safe and seamless, greener and data-driven tourism. The next steps will be for us to continue, of course, a dialogue with the industry, with the regions, with the member states, and to define concrete commitments and concrete actions with the targets. So this is our vision. And well, it is important to say that, of course, here your seminar is contributing indeed to our views, how we can come out of this situation, what are innovative solutions, technological solutions for tourism to produce a more diversified product and offers to the consumer. The very last slide simply gives a reference, some links for reference that might be useful for you to take a look. And I hope I didn't take too much time. I ran very quickly through it, but I'm here to answer your questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Ramona. And now we have on the screen the presentation on blue economy by Linos Voskarides. So please, Linos.
Yes, hello from my side. So as it's shown in the presentation, my name is Linos Voskaridis, and I am the policy officer responsible for coastal and maritime tourism in DG MARE. And since a few months now, I'm also responsible coordinator for the Blue Ports Forum, which is a subgroup of the European Ports Forum. Next slide, Massimo. So, as in every service in the Commission, and as my colleague mentioned before, our work is basically based on some documentation, either legal references, either simply documentation. I wrote here are legal references, which is basically 3 documents that are not legislation as such, but are guidelines for the work on coastal and maritime tourism. The first one is a communication of 2012-494. Initially, this communication refers to the blue growth, which is the first title of our strategy in DG MARE about the blue economy. But through the years, through the time, this title evolved. Now it's called the Blue Economy Strategy, and it's about now to be amended again to be called Sustainable Blue Economy. So just to give you information, when you see this title in different forms, it means that simply it evolves over time to adapt to the new, let's say, realities of the moment. Under the Blue Economy Strategy, we have the communication about European strategy for more growth and jobs in coastal and maritime tourism, which is the basic, the main basis for the work on the coastal and maritime tourism. So it's about tourism that is only on the coast and in the sea. This is the particularity of this document reference. And under this document, we have the staff working document on nautical tourism, which is the document, the reference document of most of the projects that are financed by EASME, which I suppose as well BlueRoses is part of it. So these 3 documents are, let's say, our references to work on the coastal and maritime tourism. And under these documents, we are preparing the projects and financing or following the projects that are done under this. Next slide, please. So, during the last 5 years, we have financed, or let's say, co-financed and followed many projects that we can easily call today success stories of the coastal and maritime tourism. I mentioned here 2 different calls that are done since the time that I am responsible for this job. The first one is called Underwater Cultural Heritage. It included 3 projects that you can see here on the second line of a total of 1.1 million euro. These 3 projects were mainly to promote the underwater activities, so for visiting to museums, so let's say wrecks that are transformed into museums or other places in the underwater heritage where they were interesting to be seen and visited. And the second part that was done after 2017, called Nautical Routes for Europe, was to promote the cooperation between coastal regions to promote activities related to the maritime or nautical tourism. All the projects here are 5 projects, as you can see as well in the second line, 1.5 million euro. All these projects were to promote the cooperation between coastal regions of different countries, so it's a minimum of 2 countries each time, and is to promote either the activities in water or on shore but related to the water. 2 of them were mainly to promote websites that show the nautical routes and nautical maps of the areas that I are referred to. It is important here to mention that all these 8 projects and many others that are initiated and financed by DG MARE and EASME together are all of them continuing today. Either the project has finished and now the results are used from other projects or other companies for their job, either the business started with some of these projects, succeeded with the financing of the Commission, and is now continuing with an autonomous way. It's a successful company which is now on its way for many years to come, hopefully at least, to go through. So this is the main way that we are working with that. You will see many more details about the way these funds are managed. These projects are initiated or, let's say, promoted by the presentation that will be done by my colleague Agnieszka Kiepny later on today by EASME. So this was the main thing that I wanted to show you. So the next slide is simply about the conclusion. So this was, I tried to make it as fast as I could. And if there are any other questions later on, please send to Massimo, who has all my contact details, to ask any questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Linus. And now we can give the floor to your colleague, Miguel Lizaso. So please, Miguel.
Hi, can you listen to me? Can you hear me?
Yes, very well.
Okay, thanks. To my understanding, you are passing by the slides, aren't you? Okay, so hello everybody, welcome here, and thank you very much for inviting me. Well, my name is Miguel Lizaso. I'm working in DG Research and Innovation, and I'm dealing mostly with aquaculture and food systems, so it's somehow quite related to tourism. Next slide. And well, following on what Ramona said, well, things has changed a lot. So we have been funding quite thoroughly the tourism sector. So I will put only some examples from Horizon 2020 and for the last 2-3 years. So the one of the main was funded with 17 million euros. That was Civitas Destinations, and was based on, well, sustainable urban mobility, safe, attractive, and accessible public spaces, so smart and clean up urban freight. So it was a kind of looking for more clean and greener activities. Next slide. But we have been funding also small projects from another actions like Rights Up, dealing with, well, mass tourism, that now is not the issue during these times, or the living in the media, that analyzing the impact of media tourism on small local identities, or smart tourism, about why the SMEs, the small and medium enterprises, should apply to improve their service with the arrival of the new technologies. Next slide, please. So I will just mention 3 very brand projects launched on January this year. Small Culture, developing a decision support system to monitor the regions with tourism. Impact Tour, about combining data analysis algorithms with machine learning and artificial intelligence just to improve policies on the tourism sector and specifically more on the cultural tourism that was just booming the years before, or a spot that is more or less the same, is dealing with cultural tourism. Next slide. But now, well, this has changed, the scenario has changed, and we are trying to adapt to this COVID-19 crisis. Next slide. And I'm going to propose the main 3 actions or 3 lines for research where you could apply or request funding for research. One is, well, the main is Horizon Europe, that it includes all of them. And Horizon Europe is, well, 100 billion euros is the biggest ever fund for research and innovation. So, well, it's a lot of opportunities there. And, well, there are 2 main issues that I would like to mention in addition to increase the knowledge, is to boost Europe's innovation capacity, competitiveness and jobs, and to deliver on citizens' priorities and sustain our socio-economic model and values. That is really needed right now. So next slide, please. Well, very briefly, Horizon Europe has 3 pillars, one for basic research, mostly, well, understanding methodologies. The other is the pillar 2, that is from understanding to implementation, occupying that gap. And there you should look for a lot of opportunities with the work program. We are working now on the work program. And the third is the innovation pillar, so the European Innovation Council. Next slide. Some specific ideas proposed under the pillar 2 could be, well, let me just check. Oh, so, well, this we are funding innovative governance, environmental observations, and digital solutions in support of the Green Deal. And, well, destination 6 will deal with resilient, inclusive, healthy, and green rural, coastal, and urban communities. More specifically, dealing with tourism, you have there some opportunities, integration of marine ecosystem services, and socioeconomic empowerment of the users of the coast. Tourist development in nature and coastal, because we are promoting or we are funding actions dealing with resilience and sustainable actions, specifically for tourism. Next slide, please. So we have 5, in addition to the work program of to the topics, we have 5 missions, and I would point or call your attention to the adaptation to climate change, including societal transformation, to the climate neutral and smart cities for touristic cities, and, well, specifically for healthy ocean seas, coastal and inland waters. What is a mission is a portfolio of actions, will be very well funded, and we need your contributions. Next slide, please. This is the healthy oceans, seas and coastal inland waters that will be basically dealing with regeneration of the seas and the coastal areas. Next slide. And this is a way to sustain, well, blue economy, but specifically blue tourism as regenerative sources of well-being and sustainability. Next slide. We have some other actions, and this is my last appeal to you, to all of you. Just keep in touch, just create a good organization between different projects, because we are going to need you and your inputs for the partnerships. And the sector, the tourism sector, is one of the main sectors for the blue economy in the Mediterranean area. So I'm calling you to keep in touch, to act together, and to propose different actions. And please have a look to the partnerships. Thank you very much. And, well, this is my last slide.
Thank you very much, Miguel. And now we can move to the operational aspects of this workshop with session 1 and with the presentation by Marko Jovic.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. My name is Marko Jovic. I work in the Croatian Chamber of Economy, which is one of the partners on the project Mistral that Tiziana talked about before. I'm a local coordinator for the Chamber's Mistral team. Mistral is a modular project led by Emilia-Romagna region from Italy and co-financed by the InterregMed program. You can see here some numbers and the aim of the project. So the focus of the project is on unlocking the innovation potential of the coastal and marine ecosystem in the Med area. So next slide, Massimo, please. I'm going to talk about the innovation potential and the enabling factors regarding sustainable tourism in Med area that are both described in the Blue Growth book, which is one of the most important deliverables of the project. You can see it here, the cover of it, and the whole book is open to the public on our website, on the project website. So the opportunities and innovation potential will be the big data services for sustainable exploitation and monitoring of the marine environment, virtual reality, which enriches the tourist experience, of course, the smartphone applications, robotics, which can be used in monitoring of coastal zones, acquiring data, collecting waste, etc. Circular economy principle concerns the reduction of the food waste, plastic bottles, soaps, and so on, reducing the seasonality, and the last is designing a product that preserve the local areas authenticity and take into consideration their population. As far for challenges, you all know that many Mediterranean tourist destinations often suffer from overcrowding, exerting too much pressure on land and natural resources, whether from an environmental or a social point of view. New type of tourism needs to be defined in a more eco-friendly manner and with more consideration for local populations. Next slide, please, Massimo. This will be enabling factors. First, policy and regulations are essential to support the development of sustainable tourism, to implement laws and regulations to frame and reduce the potential impact of tourist activities and to reach a good environmental status. The good example is Barcelona Convention. Funding, so all tourist sectors could be involved to finance the development of new products and services, less impacting for the environment. Research and development need to study carrying capacity, implement water-related technologies and waste reduction. Participatory sciences are more and more used to involve tourists in the management actions of the environment. And the last, social acceptance, raising awareness and measure to mitigate the impacts. So next slide, Massimo, please. Rethinking tourism B2B event in Croatia. Croatian Chamber of Economy organized this event last month in October in the scope of Mistral project. Its aim, beside the matchmaking itself, was to inform the participants about the trend in tourism, how individual companies are coping with new crises related to COVID-19 pandemic, and to present some inspiring stories that can serve as an example of a good practice. It was intended for all SMEs and institutions in the tourism sector, as well as those who do business with the tourism sector, like IT sector, creative industry, promotional agencies, universities, research centers, and so on. So it included webinars and matching sessions. We had over 300 participants from 19 countries, so we are very satisfied with these numbers. Next slide, please. So these were the topics. They were summarized in some categories, but as you can see, a lot of time was dedicated to sustainable tourism. So next slide. So, and this is the last slide. I just want to show you some presentations from the event that can serve as an example of a good practice regarding the sustainable tourism. First is Fortress in Šibenik. I hope you can see this. Basically, it's the use of digital technology as a storytelling tool. The next one is virtual reality of Zadar history. It's a time travel through most significant moments of Zadar history through by using a VR headset. And the last one is example of the town of Mali Lošinj, which is a leader in sustainable tourism in Croatia and one of the leaders on the European level. The proof of that are these awards won. So next slide, Massimo. So basically, this is it from me. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Marco. And the next presentation is by Mariam Nevis Abdelaziz from Mauritania. Mariam? Is Mariam connected?
Good morning, everyone.
Okay, good morning.
Hello.
Yes,
Can you hear
Mariam,
me, guys?
we can hear you. You can go on with your presentation, please.
Okay, thank you very much. My name is Mariam Nevis Abdelaziz. I'm representing the Mauritanian Federal Tourism. I guess this is, you can just pass the slides. To talk about tourism, we need to talk about Mauritania first and the federal tourism. Mauritania is an African country who had a mixed ethnic and had a lot of opportunities in tourism business. The federal tourism or the federation tourism is the let me just talk about the federal tourism. Federal tourism is the company that represented all the private worker in this sector. And we give like thousands of working promises. Sorry, can you just pass the slide, because I guess I'm not really ready. Yeah, let's talk about Mauritania. Like I said first, to talk about the tourism, talk about the federal tourism, we need to talk about Mauritania. And to introduce Mauritania, because we're new here and we're not actually very professional like the others. So let's talk about Mauritania first and introduce Mauritania as a new country that enjoy the WestMED. Hello? Hello?
Maybe you prefer to see presentation one.
What?
Is because I received also this presentation from you with presentation of Mauritania, because I had two presentations from you. So
Okay.
it is this one.
Thank you very much. Actually,
Okay,
Mauritania
sorry.
Organization of French got her independence in November 1906. Geographically located in northwestern Africa between Morocco, Algeria, Senegal, and Mali. Arabic is the formal language of the country, and French is the second language. Mauritania had a diverse ethnic population mixed between Arab and African citizens. Mauritania had a magnificent touristic location, starting with her world's richest beach, in her largest deep desert, and finally her interesting cultures presented by people, food, attitude, diversity in the use of language. Thousands of tourists visit Mauritania yearly. Yeah, yearly. Most of them European, coming from France, Italy, Spain, Belgium. 40% of them repeating their visits. So they visit the first time and they come back. Our federation works daily to make their experience unique. We represent the private, and here we can represent the private investors working in this field, and with code number reached $10 million. With thousands of workers, include different sectors working in the same field, for instance, transportation, TO agents, restaurants, hotel, and extra. We have thousands of locations, a very, very, very rich culture, and very interesting culture. Like we have mosques from their ages passing the 100 year, and we have very interesting. What are you doing? Okay.
Yeah, I was moving to the other presentation, so you can do your talks.
I'm just forget. Yeah. Okay. What we need from this business meeting?
Yes. So.
Yeah.
Do you identify any specific main issues after COVID-19 in tourism in Mauritania? Yeah,
we found ourselves totally paralyzed by the COVID-19. 90% of this sector is totally stopped from January. We just trying to. It's a disaster, actually.
And what do you need? For instance, what do you think that could be a possible need that ICT technology can support you in solving
problems? In order to move the damage, we need to partnership with these 5 countries. We need to share experiences and working on a plan to go out from this disaster and save the sector, because technically we're just trying, we just look into a big disaster that it's possible destroy the sector. So we need partnership. We need to work together. We need experiences. We need workshops to revive the sector.
Okay. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much. And sorry again. It wasn't well planned. We're closing the year and we have a lot of things to do.
No problem. Thank you very much for attending this workshop and sharing with us your experience. And now we can move to next speaker, that is Jose Luis Cordova.
And sorry, Massimo, just before Jose speakers, I would like also to introduce Monica Campillos from IEO Spain and the BlueMed CSA. She will be reporting this session and facilitating the question and answer. Thank you, Monica, for your role, and she will type instruction in the chat in order not to lose time. Jose, you can go ahead. Thank you.
Okay. Hello. Good morning, everyone. Thank you very much for inviting me. I don't see the presentation on the screen. I don't know. Okay, now perfect. Okay, my name is José Luis Córdoba. I am managing director at Andalucia Lab. We are a department of Turismo de Andalucía, the destination management organization of Andalusia. Maximo, if you want, you can pass to the next slide. Yes, we have a very specific mission. We try to help small companies in the travel industry to incorporate to the internet, what we call to incorporate to the digitalization. And also we help travel tech companies to escalate and to really to boost their operations. So this is our main users, the travel small companies and the travel tech companies. Please pass to the next slide, Maximo. We started to operate it, or we started our activities in 2007. First, we addressed our activities to the small travel companies, offering them workshops, consultancy services, and specialized services that we try with those activities to help them to understand what was happening with the internet and how they should react and adapt to the new situation. In 2012, we started a new program more addressed to travel tech companies, because these travel tech companies started to approach to Andalucia Lab. They saw in Andalucia Lab a mean to be able to access to these travel professionals. So we started working with them, organizing tech showrooms. We deployed specialized co-working and so on. And in 2019, we started our last program, our last phase, just trying to attract travel tech companies from abroad and also trying to boost our actual companies, travel tech companies that are located in Andalusia. So this is our history and what we do and who we are. So from our perspective, Maximo, if you want, you can pass to the next. Yes, thank you. From our perspective, we see that the ICT services related with COVID-19, we have to take into account different phases that we are living with this outbreak, and that probably these phases are cyclical. So the first one, when the initial outbreak happened, really what we saw between our users was a great uncertainty between them, because they had a really important problem of information. They didn't know about the severity of the pandemic, what the evolution of the pandemic would be, the possible mobility restrictions, which measures governments will take, and of course the different impacts between segments. So really at the beginning, everything was very confusing for these, for at least for our users in Andalusia. So Maximo, if you can pass to the next one, if you want. So here we see different opportunities. We think that really, if we are in a cyclical situation, maybe this initial outbreak, we hope not, but some things will happen in a similar way. So we think that there is an opportunity here, because it's required to build a system that allows businesses and destinations to understand and anticipate what is happening. So we think that here the main question is to build this information system to help the institute to shed some light on what's happening. So after this first phase, we came into a second when the demand restrictions were evident, when the revenues really decreased, almost disappeared in most of our businesses. When we started with the restrictions of open and close time, activity limitations, capacity, and other COVID measures. And here we also identified some opportunities. You can pass to the next. Some opportunities more related with prepare the sector to the next transformation, to a digital transformation and to a tech transformation. Of course, in this phase, the financial support was key. We can talk about direct or financial support or cost contonation, but related to what the Andalucia Lab do, we saw an increase in our activities of workshops, consultancy services, because small companies had the time in that moment that really it's very difficult for them to find out this time. They're very busy, they have a lot of things to do always. So our increase our activities and the demand and the assistance of all our workshops and consultancy services and events. And of course, it started also special interest in what the tech solutions were available from us. So here I think it's an opportunity to prepare the field, the terrain to the future. So after this phase, we went to the next one, to the third, is what we call the adaptation phase, where in this phase, we think that we are aware that business and destinations must live with this pandemic and provide their services in this environment of uncertainty. Of course, here again, there are lack of trust information. They don't know how the demand flows are going to move, to behave, the duration of this cycle, what markets they should focus on. For them, in this moment, it was very important to identify the budget, how they will manage the budget, the marketing budget to attract certain markets and segments. And in this phase, we also can find out some opportunities. So Maximus, you can pass to the next one if you want. And that is really similar to the opportunity in the first phase. It's related to creating an information system that allows businesses to react and to adapt, to better adapt to these situations. For example, as I said before, how to allocate your marketing budget in the best possible way. So we hope that soon we will be in the fourth phase, in the next one, Maximo, the recovery phase. It's difficult, of course, to know when this will happen, but probably we will be between phase 3 and phase 4 for a time. So in this phase is also paramount to have this new information after all what is happening. So about what markets and segments are going to grow, how the utilization is going to affect them, and how can they take advantage of this digitalization, what possible changes will be in the behavior of the consumers. This is very important, and we don't know. Of course, they will need help and information about how to restart their businesses and finance their growth. So you can pass to the next one. So as a conclusion, really in this phase, also in the recovery phase, we are as a conclusion of all the ideas, at least, and the experience, we have identified during these months and in the previous period, the small companies and destinations, but specifically small companies, they have a problem of trust information. So we see an opportunity to develop some information system that, of course, could aggregate data from different sources and be a confident place where businesses can help them to understand what's happening and how to react and adapt to the situation. So this is everything what I want to share. So thank you very much again for your invitation.
Thank you very much for your presentation. And now we leave the floor to Elena Tanou. So please, Elena. Elena, can you hear me? Are you connected? George, please, could you check if Elena is well connected?
Hello, Massimo. Hello, everybody. I will check it and come back.
I see her connected.
Me too, Margarita. I will try to reach her on phone.
Maybe we can go to the next presentation and then come back to her.
Okay, so now we give the floor to Znene Anas from Tunisia. Please.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for the invitation. Present myself. My name is Znene Anas. I'm Operation Manager of TUI Amusement Tunisia. TUI Amusement means, if you can go to the next slide, please, Massimo. It's a destination management company. That means we are in charge of the guests when they come to the destinations. So we are a member of TUI Group. We did change our names from TUI Destination Experience to TUI Amusement since now 1 month, and this is where we integrate the amusement company, and so now we are one company, TUI and Amusements, on the same time. This is to more focus on digitalizations of our operations. We are managing on the destination the third party and TUI guests. We have nearly 300,000 guests per year before, of course, COVID crisis. And we are in charge, of course, of the excursions sold on the resort, transfers of guests, round trips, and the accommodations of our guests. If you can go to the next slide, please. We operate everywhere in Tunisia. So we have some branches in Hammamet, Sousse, Jerba, and Tunis, but we organize a lot of excursions everywhere in Tunisia. We try to respect, of course, the information that we can get from the travel advice, especially the security advices. So we have to follow what we found on the FCO, especially. So if there's some places still on red, so for some security reasons, we try to avoid them from our excursions. And we apply an audit for all our suppliers and partners for the excursion. So we try to audit them for the health and safety. It could be like a self-assessment one or the physical one, depends on the importance of the supplier. And this is to be sure that we can offer really the right product for our guests. We are omni-channel sales, so we are offering our products on offline with our reps on the destinations. This is it represented before the COVID crisis nearly 80% of our sales, and the rest is sold through the online web or through the web. So we are trying to, of course, to put online the main product that we have it on the destinations. If you can go to the next slide, please. The COVID is coming. Fortunately, it's like a real disaster on most of the countries, touristic countries. Tunisia government decided really to have a special protocol for our guests. The measures, special measures for the travel agency and the hotels on destinations, with a maximum of capacity, 50% of maximum capacity for transporting guests in the hotels. We have to respect also distanciations between guests. We have to offer all the necessary material like of course disinfectant on the buses, for example. In the hotels, it's like a protocol with 20 pages indicating all the measures that we have to respect. And they decided in June, on the 26th of June, to reopen again the borders for tourists after getting like 0 cases in Tunisia. But even with the opening borders, still the results were not really good. We record like minus 80% on the arrivals and minus 60% on the turnover. And this is the impact on the tourism Tunisia industry. Unfortunately, we didn't have any UK guests, no German, no Benelux guests. We have just few guests coming, especially from Poland, France, and Czech, and the others refuse really to come back to the destinations. The government tried really to let's say to reduce even the little bit the obligation for the guests, so they can just they don't need to get like a PCR test. They need just to come and with charters, and they have to respect the protocol. Unfortunately, this is not impacting good the number of the arrivals. We had nearly 140,000 guests for all Tunisia during the last 3 months. And one of the issues that we could have also concerning this pandemic, that we don't know really the exact time when it will finish. We got like good news yesterday about the vaccinations. We hope and we cross our fingers things will become really better, but we don't know the real evaluation of this pandemic, and we don't know what will be the near future, let's say. As explained before, we cannot wait really for a good results for 21, but probably on 23 if things is going really well. We detect some change on the trends of our guests. So guests start to looking. They are looking for trust and to be reassured also, and that safety on the destination are really good. People start really to get like new ways of working, and we are seeing some new products now in Tunisia, like hotels offering for Tunisians nights and a room for, let's say, accommodation, and at the same time some other rooms just for walking. So people are now starting to go and to work from homes, and people are also now with the new trends avoiding any crowded place like markets or the busy areas. For example, New Zealand, where we could find a lot of guests at the same time. So this is like a new trend. If you can go for the next slide, please, Massimo. Of course, hygiene and sanitary now it's on the top of the trans or new trans, and it's really important for guests to be sure that they are really applied on the destinations. And we detect also that people are more trying really to keep their money, not to spend it on the tourism, let's say on the tourism or on the excursions. So they are more sensitive now to the prices. The only thing that we tried really last month, even because with this 50% occupancy on some buses on the excursions, we have really to review the price strategy on the destination. Otherwise, it will be like a negative impact on our profit. So we try really to increase a little bit the prices of the products, but we focus it more on the hygiene and sanitary measures, and we put it on one of our highlights for the products. And now people are more or less asking for flexible bookings, because they don't know if things like what happened last week on UK, so the decision have been taken for a lockdown again. So this flexible bookings let them really possible if they want to refund their refund, to get their refunds, or to change the date, because now every day it's like new information. Every day we have to adapt ourselves for the information that we are getting. And the decision of the company now, can you go for the next one, please? Yes. Like now the decision of the company on the destination is to put and to highlight, of course, all the health and safety, let's say the hygiene measures and cleanliness, and to be sure that people can get really the right products. We are trying also to boost the health tourism, like sports, nature, and hiking, because people feel that they are not on a crowded places, and they can be more safe on this kind of during this kind of products. For the next slides, as I explained it, more or less it's small groups overall, independent type activity. This is the new activities that we try to offer for our guests, avoiding closed place. So like for example now when it's possible to move outdoors, like to change the actors or the partners during the excursions, like asking people to go to get the restaurants outdoor, to not offer any lunches inside, try to keep everything out. For the amusement, for example, I know it's closed place, but we try really to share the groups on small ones with guides, to get, for example, some technology now, new technology with the headgear, so people can really hear to the guides. They don't need to really to be close to him, so just to switch on the system, and they can hear what's happening at the explanation of the guides. And even on during, like I say, on the buses during transfers or the excursions. So we have like some places they are let's say people cannot stay there, so we have like special information to say this seat cannot be used, so to keep like the distance that we needed from a guest to another one. For the next group, you can see next slide, please. So this is like some example of excursion that we are trying now to offer outdoors, like say boat tours, tickets only, private tours that I will re-explain it, the car hire products. So it's some of our excursions product there we are trying to offer. Can you go to the next slide, please? Sustainability for us is one of the important points that we have. Now we are focusing on this product, and we feel people are like, let's say, more or less trying to get this new product. We have three values for this product. One is unique. The product should be unique. It should be authentic and responsible. And my vision is like people when they will come back to destination, they feel that they have really to boost and to help also some partners, because now on the share that's a lot of a lot of actors, they are suffering from this COVID, and they need really to get to participate again, to participate on the to be part of the share again to survive. Otherwise, they were bankrupt. Let's say that they could be easily disappear from the economic sectors. So we are trying to get really the real products and the right products. We are trying to audit all the tourism, let's say, shared agents. So we are sure that the persons, the supplier who will participate who will be part of the sustainable product have to respect, of course, some criteria. And we are trying to create some a platform that people can go there inside and check what they need to respect before the audit comes there, and to be sure that everything has been respected. If you go to the next slide, please. So one of the solutions that have been really chosen for the next, let's say, days is to avoid, of course, any guest contact. So the reps who were working before in the hotels, we are trying really to avoid this contact between guests and reps. So all things will be could be loaded on the apps of the guests. So guest needs right to go on these apps, and he will know which coach number is waiting on the airport. He can know, of course, the information about all about the destination. He can get all the information about the destination. He can chat with somebody if he wants to get more information. He can know the excursion content that we are offering on the destinations, and he can get even the pickup time when he will leave the destination. So he just connect there, and all the information is going through this applications. Digitalization for us is, let's say, the priority of the company, and as I explained it on the beginning of my presentation, when TUI and MedCruise, it's one of, I think everybody knows, especially Italy. So it's like this platform was offering everything online. So we do the same now with TUI MedCruise. Now it's everything is offered online, and people can just go on the application and they get the information. Of course, this will avoid also avoid to get any cash money. Everything is now cashless, so people have to pay things through the system or through the app, and this will let people more free. Let's say they can get what they want, but the minimum contact possible to avoid any contaminations. I think this is my presentation. Thank you.
Yes. And now we go back to Elena Tano. Please, Elena.
Good morning, everybody. Can you hear me? Hello?
Yes, please go on.
Can you hear me? Well, greetings from Nicosia, Cyprus. I'm Elena Tano, Vice President of Top Kinisis Travel. We are the biggest public company in Cyprus, tour operators. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Next slide. Okay, back in March 2020, the UNWTO Secretary General launched the Travel Tomorrow campaign of the World Tourism Organization, and he stated, historically, tourism has proven itself as a key driver of international recovery, and as early as now, we must begin to prepare in order to build the foundations of the future resilience of tourism. The situation today is different. In the past, probably a volcano was erupting in Indonesia with many, many injuries. And within a month, the incident was forgotten. People would travel back to the destination as normal. The pandemic crisis doesn't allow us to this behavior now. This time, tourism was the first to be affected and will be the last to restart. Next slide, please. The WTO today, on its suggestions to the member states for tourism recovery, underlines the need to establish local tourism observatories with high-end ICT technologies for understanding and monitoring tourism in development and impact. I would like to share an example from Cyprus regarding this. Here in Cyprus, we host during the winter months many football teams from Europe to train. Due to our mild winter between the months of November till March, these teams train here at special stadiums in Paralimni area. A high-end platform, we're working on it now, will include all the data concerning these football teams. The local tourism observatory of this area, with all the analytics gathered, can monitor, develop and enhance the needs of these teams, as well as measure precisely the impact of this specific athletic tourism sector. Next slide, please. Apparently, from the start of the pandemic, many destinations were promoted through mobile applications or their websites, promotional videos as safe places to travel. We have the example of Visit Covasna or the Safe Sibiu in Romania. Greece and Cyprus also were very safe places to travel to. But although many countries had high expectations for their tourism sector in 2020, their ambitions were cut short when the dangers surrounding the pandemic became truly evident. Although we had safe flights, safe destinations available, the epidemiologists were changing the protocols of each European country overnight without any uniformity between EU. Thus, the traveling experience of the few who traveled was not practical, but rather complicated and difficult. Next slide, please. There is a big concern of the impact of COVID-19 on national and global economies. Experts estimate that the recession between the countries will be 6 to 10% from the different EU countries. The answer depends upon how long the pandemic will last. As mentioned before, the most immediate and perhaps the most prolonged impact would be on the travel and tourism sectors. Unfortunately, this depression is creating high unemployment. We experience also new practices. For example, the virtual meetings for business people, virtual conferences and exhibitions. Therefore, meeting in person might not be a priority for the very beginning of the recovery stage. Next slide, please. The European Capital of Smart Tourism, on its annual report for the European Commission, highlights the need of data collection and marks relevant initiatives as smart tourism best practices in digitalization, particularly those emphasizing in understanding tourist needs, local routes, experiences rating, and decision-making process. In view of this, I can only add that EU funding supporting projects like this, emphasizing on these sectors and fields, can help the tourism industry restart in 2021 more positively. Next slide, please. The newly re-elected president of the Travel Agents and Tour Operators of Europe stated last October, the travel industry in Europe faces many challenges due to this global health crisis. Priority will be to work with the political leaders and industry partners on setting the right framework for the travel industry for speedy recovery. This recovery can happen only if all European leaders must agree on standardized rules and regulations in order to facilitate travel throughout the EU, as it is commonly practiced now in many big countries such as US and Australia. Next slide, please. To achieve this speedy recovery, a prerequisite is must be coordinated an approach of travel restrictions within Europe. Needless to say, host countries themselves themselves will also need to show they are safe for tourists, must have low reported infection numbers, must have credible systems in place in case tourists do get sick, insurance covers, recipient countries must make it easier for travelers to arrive, for example, online visas, flexibility on travel arrangements. Once a fully tested vaccine is safe to use, travelers will have the confidence to travel without fear. Then the authorities may consider to incorporate personal vaccine records in face recognition passport control electronic systems so as to speed the free passage. Next slide, please. Going now to the solutions, needs and opportunities, I must stress how the internet has dramatically changed the way citizens travel, prepare and book their travel arrangements. Travelers create their own itineraries online with digital tools, i.e. the websites, the mobile applications, review portals. The traditional value and supply chain has been transformed into a complex ecosystem of actors like the new technologies, new travel intermediaries are the big players having established trusted brands which are recognized by the customers instantly. For example, Booking.com and Expedia. I must confess though that during the lockdown and the repatriation of the many stranded travelers around the world, we, the travel agents and the tour operators, were the ones who solved all the practical problems for the travelers who were facing problems with their online reservations. Next slide, please. The Tourism Manifesto issued in Brussels last October strongly stated, tourism must be part of the national recovery and resilience plans because with appropriate support can be one of the most effective engines to deliver sustainable development, will support employment, will contribute to well-being, will generate revenue, will preserve communities, culture and heritage. Tourism is one of the best exports. Our Deputy Minister of Tourism, Mr. Savas Perdios, the last few months has carried out a lengthy dialogue with all of us, the stakeholders in the travel and tourism sector, and already deposited projects worth of 100 million euros and more, proposing tourism digital projects and sustainable infrastructure projects. Next slide, please. Next slide. Tourism is micro SME dominated, and we are all aware that smaller businesses always return employment to the economy faster. The sector accounts for 9.5% of the EU's GDP, provides 22.6 million jobs. Tourism can contribute immensely to the two strategic objectives of Europe, i.e. the digitalization and sustainability. Next. Priority for the remaining of 2020 and the 2021 is the survival of businesses and restoring the travel confidence. In our case in Cyprus, our government supported mostly the businesses with labor schemes in order for the employees not to be laid off. I believe that once we have the vaccine, and surely we heard the good news yesterday, some people will feel covered and prepared to travel. Governments then must give incentives to the companies, i.e. tax relaxations and so on, to restart the business. Next slide, please. What is absolutely essential to know this time is that the travel industry survival depends on common testing protocols and common approach to quarantines in Europe. This can be done through sufficient testing through the airports, harbors, coach terminals, etc., to prevent bottlenecks as well. Lifting of quarantine, it's a must. Mutual recognition of the results of the tests, and probably a common digital platform where the test and the vaccine test can be inserted. My last slide, please. My conclusion is that for tourism, We need to establish sustainable and effective synergies between creative actors and places in the world by utilizing skills, technological tools, and knowledge aligned to the tourism needs and expectations of post-COVID era in order to generate unique, creative, and meaningful cultural content and experiences adapted to the new normal due to the pandemic. Next slide. Thank you very much for your attention. And as experts also in a lot of European projects, we are prepared to participate with you as well for new projects to come during the new scheme 2021-27. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Elena. And now we have the last operational speaker, who is Sergio Bucci. So please, Sergio.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Sergio from Yachting in Sardinia. Can you go to the next slide, please? As a first thing, I would like to thank Navigo for giving us the opportunity to present our company group. Navigo is a network of companies working in the blue economy in the district of Tuscany. It includes some of the most famous luxury yacht makers like Azimut, Perini, and so on. Navigo network employs more than 18,000 employees, including also marinas, harbors, and charter companies. Navigo partners are small, medium, and big companies. We think these companies have huge growth opportunities, thanks to also to the development of ICT and sustainable use of resources. That's why Navigo and Yachting Sardinia Group met in a new Interreg project named Green and Blue Routes, aimed to promote the sustainable use of marine protected areas, enhancing the charter sector, which is also a part of the Navigo network. Charter companies are split into two main groups: the typical charter service provided on board of huge luxury yachts and a sailing yacht. Next slide, please. Yachting Sardinia is specialized in the second one. We rent sailing yachts for at least a 1 week stay, and we provide all the common services like a hotel. Our yachts are devised to be a floating holiday apartment. We are really focused on the comfort on board, and we constantly test new devices that make the sailing easier. Our target is not the expert sailor. Our main target is the client that wants to enjoy a relaxing and breathtaking holiday surrounded by a natural environment. We provide a real interregional product. More than half of our clients sail along Corse coast, that is in France. As you can see in the chart, it's a new concept of holiday. Today you enjoy the sunset in front of a small natural island of Sardinia in Italy, and tomorrow you will have lunch in Corse in France. It's a moving holiday, fully respecting natural environment and avoiding crowds. Next slide, please. From the official statistical and juridical point of view, this sector is not classified as tourist hospitality, but it is acknowledged in the area of beach equipment renting. We are trying to change this situation, but it seems that it is also a matter of European statistical framework. Problem is that many times we can't take part to calls for proposals for innovation in the hospitality industry because by law we are not in this sector. Next slide, please. In the last 3 years, we've been testing a satellite tracking solution that helps us to know in any moment the position of our yachts, to monitor in real-time sensors, to activate and deactivate devices, and to be immediately warned by text message if something is wrong. In this way, we can immediately contact our clients and avoid damages and problems. Next slide, please. Since 2017, we have started to develop a management software which helps us to increase productivity and to automatically assign working tasks and to communicate with clients in 5 different languages. This year, to reduce personal contacts, we developed an automated check-in procedure. Our software sends to clients all documents, instructions, and procedures, as well as the price list of extra services suitable for their yachts. Clients send us back all information, and our software gives instructions to our team and automatically communicates with our bank, which sends the links to clients for paying with the virtual POS. In this way, we achieve 2 different goals. First, we reduce personal contacts, transforming a 45 minutes check-in procedure in our office before yacht delivery in an online procedure, providing to clients a faster delivery and increasing our productivity. Second, we can deliver on board every extra equipment requested and then sanitize the whole yacht before client arrival. We also know exactly which worker went where at what time, having in this way a complete social tracking in case of necessity. As you can see in the lowest picture, we know exactly at what time client boarded, when and who went on board of our workers for the yacht delivery, and thanks to the colors, we also know the status of tasks in real time. Next slide, please. COVID created a lot of uncertainty. Our business was used to receive reservations 6-10 months in advance. This year, since February, everything blocked and clients waited the last moment to book because they weren't sure they could fly to Sardinia. So we developed a new function in our software. Every night, the system checks our booking trends, and basing on the deals offered to the market and during previous days, it creates new best deals for our clients. These deals are automatically uploaded in our website through a JSON connection, and our best website creates cards with the deals, with these deals, allowing our clients to book and pay directly online. Have a look on our website, and every day you will find new deals. Next slide, please. We still have some basic issues to solve, like the speed of internet connections in the harbor, since in marinas there is no fast internet, on the docks and on the yachts, because when our clients move to Corsica, since it's another country, it's still not available at an appropriate European roaming. Next slide, please. We strongly believe that this is the future of seaside holidays. No crowds, no consumption on land, possibility to move around and to enjoy unreachable places. We also think that we can enrich this holiday with the so-called citizen science actions, training our tourists to monitor the health of the environment. These are pictures of some of our clients who played with a dolphin while sailing. Next slide, please. In order to widen our market, we have to make the sailing easier and yachts more comfortable. For example, we are testing on our yachts a new propelling system that allows the boat to move laterally and to circle around using a joystick. Why do not connect it to a remote control console? We'd also like to add extra functions to our satellite tracking system, for example, for a richer remote maintenance assistance. And we want to improve the energy efficiency of yachts, as well as to widen the portfolio of accessories on board. Next slide, please. To sum up, we think that this is the only way to develop tourism with a sustainable approach, allowing people to experience the real taste of life, making the sailing more comfortable, easier, and safer. We think this is the real challenge for all of us. Thank you everybody for the attention.
Thank you very much, Sergio. And now it's time to Monica to manage questions and answers. Please, Monica.
Good morning, all. There's no questions right now at the moment. If you have any question, you could type it on the chat. So please go ahead, and we could be answered by the panelists.
Also, perhaps if panelists have a question for other panelists, this can work.
And for the European Commission also, if anyone has any question, please go ahead and type it, or just the panelists if they have to go said something. There's one question. How can tourism benefit from low-cost marine robots? Is the question directed to one in special to be answered by, please? If you know it, please. Is any of the panelists could answer this question? How can tourism benefit from low-cost marine robots?
Perhaps Massimo?
Maybe this is something that we are trying to understand during our BlueRoses project, because one of the goals of the project is understand how the use of marine robots can support tourism. Can they be miniaturized and used, for instance, as toys to support, to be used by people on yachts, or also as tools to provide remote access to fragile sites. And probably many of the things that we listened this morning can change in some way the perspective, because to do that you need to reserve a robot to connect from your PC at home or your smartphone and so on. But it is something that some years ago was just a bit strange, but that now is getting more and more common for any tourist to access any site. Because what we listened this morning was, for instance, that many places they are moving to have mobile apps for reservation, for managing the access, and so on. So that is something more similar to that.
Okay, thank you, Maximo. There's another question. Is there a real market for remote access to local tourism experiences, and what is preventing this market to be fully exploited? For example, through further investment of robotic, ICT, and other devices?
Oh, I can try to answer again. And I hope that we will be able to provide some answers at the end of the project. So I mean, by the end of the next year, because we will explore that, and we will try through pilots to involve people and to understand also which will be the business models adapted to that. Because we don't know if, for instance, if the remote access will be the real touristic experience, or if, for instance, this kind of access could support the venue of tourists in the real site. Because, for instance, you can in 5 minutes to check a dive in a place, and then you can say, okay, it is very interesting. I dive there with a robot from my house, and now I want to go there and to prove the real experience with my body in that site. So we have to check this also, involving people and during the pilots to understand how it is perceived and managed by people.
Please, Stephanie, if you want to address a question.
Yes, hi. Hi. One of the interesting observations that that I heard throughout the presentations today is that it was made by the Cypriot representative, is that at the end of the day, it was travel operators who kind of sought to find solutions to those travelers who might have booked through online platforms such as Expedia and whatever. So my question is, obviously, even after COVID, I would imagine that travelers are still going to be a bit cautious, and maybe they'll still look for this personal touch given the uncertainty that will prevail. So the question is, how does the sector potentially, for example, in the case of travel operators, how do they envisage merging the digitalization aspect, which is obviously going to increase at a very rapid pace now, brought about even by COVID, but also with this personal combination, you know, the fact that you're in contact with someone and somebody is going to guide you through your traveling experience. So the question really is about how do you merge the two, you know, the digitalization aspect, but also the personal combination to it, which is probably going to be a very important area post-COVID, you know, because it's true we're putting a lot of emphasis on the digitalization aspect, but as we have noted, booking through online platforms also posed its challenges when it came to receiving refunds or getting in touch on how to get refunds or getting in touch with guests, with hosts and whatnot. I'm not sure if the Spirit representative is here. Maybe she can address this specific question. Or anyone else for that matter.
Yeah. Hello? Do you hear me?
Yes, go ahead, please.
Okay, yes. Well, I think it's a very interesting question about the difference or the frontier between the presence experience and the digital experience. But I think that nowadays, really the separation between them is very low. I mean, the experience now is connected. You can start with a digital experience. After that, you can go to a physical experience, and during your physical experience, you also have a digital contact with your customers. So I think that in the future will be very difficult to difference between the on and the offline part of your experience. So the best users on the companies will try to just to provide the experience to their customers, avoiding these differences. I don't know if I answer your questions, but we see this at least with our users, the ones that are thriving, that are having more success, are really, of course, they are adopting the digital transformation, but at the same time, they are aware that they have to connect personally with their demand.
Thank you very much. Next question is for Dr. Linos Boskarides, Dr. Miguel Lizaro, and Dr. Marco Jovic, and it's about, could the introduction of citizen science projects in tourism offer become a push to restart an experimental and more sustainable tourism? Please, Dr. Linos, Dr. Miguel, Dr. Marco, could you answer this question?
I don't know if Linos is still connected because he was by phone. So.
Okay, maybe Dr. Miguel Lizaro or Dr. Marco Jovic. I don't know if they could answer this question.
Okay, please, Miguel.
Hi. Well, thank you very much for the question. But well, I feel I'm not the real expert on legislation. In any case, there are some instruments to solve or to foresee these gaps. For the next Horizon Europe, there are specific parts or content to make some research on the needs of the new legislative or new measures to address these gaps. That's what I can say. For the governance, well, it's clear that we need to involve a lot of factors. I put some examples during my presentation, and of these projects dealing with how to react in the previous period to this mass tourism, because it was a concern. It was a huge problem for small cities, for Venice, for Barcelona, for some other cities. How to address these issues through the media, through the public engagement, but also through the engagement of the political authorities. How to deal with this, because if you don't know how to deal, well, then it can be a mess, and you have this reaction about, well, this is not in Berland, this is Escaleria, or you have the invasion of tourism, and then the reaction from the locals. So there are some gaps, but there are some instruments just to deal with the response from my point, from the research point, and there will be some more opportunities. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Miguel. There's no more questions, Maximo.
Okay, thank you very much, Monica. And
I'm sorry, I don't know if Elena would like to intervene.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I will respond to Stephanie's comments about the role of the intermediaries, especially physically, the tour operators and the travel agents. Definitely, the role is there because the response once there is something that is of concern to the traveler, it's only he or she is only reassured when she speaks to somebody that will solve the problem. So our role will always be existing, and if we balance things between the digitalization of using the machineries and the applications to help us find the information, yet the emotional intelligence that is needed through the physical contact with the people, it's of absolute need. So I think a good balance of the two is the answer to what it will happen even in the future when everything will be digitalized. Thank you.
Okay, so thank you very much, Elena. And at this point, we had maybe a short coffee break, but now there was discussion. We are just a bit late. So if you agree, I will leave the floor to Mara Manente to chair the panel session. Please, Mara.
Hi. Good morning to everybody. Yes, we should start now with the panel session. First of all, I would like to introduce and welcome our rapporteur, Malika Velassan. I thank her very much for that, and our facilitator at the end of the session, George Christou, who will take note of the questions. So we have different experts in this panel session from different perspectives. I would like to come back to the main topic of the workshop, which is the integration between ICT, robotics, innovative services, and the goal to guarantee a sustainable, resilient, and competitive tourism sector in the Mediterranean area. So I'll give the floor, first of all, to Dr. Mohamed Ali Marwani, and I'll ask him a summary about the impact of COVID from not only from an economic point of view, but also from a social point of view in the Southern Mediterranean context first, and then a focus about adaptation and the use of ICT in this context. So, Dr. Ali Marwani, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much for inviting me and giving me the opportunity to talk in this workshop. So can you go to the next slide, please? Next slide. Okay, so here we see that in Tunisia, in the first half of the year, GDP loss was 21%, one of the highest in the world. And this loss can be subdivided in different groups. And what you're interested in here is the 2.3% for hotels and restaurants and the 6% for transport. So these two are the closest to tourism. Of course, there are many other sectors like agro-food and different other craft, etc., that can be also linked to tourism, but these are the two main. So we see here that almost half of GDP loss is due to sectors close to tourism in Tunisia. Next slide, please. Tourism is 40% of GDP, 95,000 jobs. And what we have seen since this spring is that we have 60% of tourism revenues that decrease of tourism by 59%, 60% of incoming tourists less, and arrivals at the borders are by 70% less. Next, please. And the impact of this economic shock is that unemployment went from 15 to 18% in Tunisia. We have more than 70,000 people who are even outside the labor force because there are absolutely no jobs. So the job losses are 160,000, minus 11.9 for agriculture, 51 in manufacturing, and 52 in services. And finally, 47 in non-manufacturing. And while we don't have to forget that in Tunisia and as in other Mediterranean countries, the informal sector is very large, around 40%, and the self-employed are around 27%, and vulnerable people are around 20%. So what does this mean? That contrary to Europe, where there are helps of the government, in countries where the informal sector is important, of course, the support of government is harder because the population itself and informal firms are harder to identify. Next slide, please. Next, this is not very important. Next, please. So we've conducted a survey about 1,200 firms. So it's in the whole economy. It's a representative survey of small and medium enterprises. And it was about the lockdown period. And we see that in April and May, most firms in the hotel and restaurants were temporarily shut down. A few are permanent, and activity was maintained in very little part, around 20–30%. So it would be interesting to see the same figures for the more recent period. Next, please. And here, the firms were asked about questions for their vulnerability and resilience. So during this period, the main problems were, of course, to access to customers, but also decrease of demand. So these two things were around 60%. And then there are other aspects like difficulty of access for suppliers, absenteeism for 8%. And this was in a period where COVID was almost inexistent in Tunisia, because in spring, there were just 50 dead in Tunisia with COVID, while in the second wave, we have around 2,000. So if we repeat the survey again, we will probably find a much higher figure. Next slide, please. And now we ask the question about the adaptation in the different sectors. And we see here that in April, about 85% did not really change their behavior. And the use of internet was around 5%. If you look in the next slide for May, we see that this figure increased a little bit to 6.5%, from 5 to 6, but the change is not as important as we need. And I think we have to understand why. So it's very important to understand why the actors were not able to completely adapt their behavior. And this we will be able to see in the next slides. So next, please. Here it's people were asked about when they expect their business recovery, and most of them thought June, more than 70%, and a few July. Next, please. So the recovery for 73% was thought to be total, and 27 only thought that the recovery would be partial. Next. And here people were asked, or companies were asked about what kind of changes. And we see that 92% were not planning any changes. So there were just 4% planning diversification and a few differentiation, specialization, and repositioning in the market. So I remind you that this is not just about the tourism sector, it's in general, but here we took the figures of the tourism sector for this presentation. So we see that most of the companies did not plan changes, and we will see why in the next slides. So what are the obstacles? Half is financial. There are some regulatory barriers, some technical obstacles, and some just don't change, probably because the entrepreneur itself is not someone who likes change. And so it's interesting to see these obstacles, because the plans that we will be able to propose in the different research project and in the different management projects are different depending on the company. So for those who face financial barriers, it's not the same for those who face technical obstacles. And this is why research is really important to determine what kind of solutions we need for the sector and for the other sectors. Next slide, please. So, and here is one of the last slides. Of course, one of the important aspects in our survey was to see what are the different possibilities of telework in the country for the different sectors. And here we see that for tourism, of course, it's very low, so less than 20%, because it's a sector where people need to move. While, for example, in the ICT sector, of course, it's very high. So here we understand why this sector is suffering more than many others. And probably some colleagues proposed ways to increase the telework in the sector, but it's still difficult. I mean, to imagine people teleworking for tourism. I mean, some of them can, of course, the managers or some, but always the tourists have to go to the hotels, and so it's difficult to find a complete transformation of the sector. It's more how to access the sector, or as the previous presentation on Sardinia, very interesting, was explaining how to manage the relation with the customer. This can be, of course, very much improved. And here the use of ICT is, of course, one of the aspects that we could really invest on. I think it was my last slide. Yes, I think it's my last slide. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mohamed. If I can, just a very short question. One of the main problems we have in the tourism sector is the role of SMEs. They have difficulties in introducing frequently digitalization instruments, new technologies, etc. So adaptation means also to try to grow up this system of small, medium-sized enterprises. Is this, from your perspective in the southern Mediterranean area, something that you are trying to work about, to develop?
So yeah, I mean, SMEs, not just in the sector, in general, have problem of, there are two main problems. One is financing. They have more difficulties to access financing, while big firms access very easily and some get very high indebted. And the other is training also. There is training because these companies don't have the means to hire managers of high quality, because in a country like Tunisia, there are a lot of high managers of high quality, but these firms don't have the size. It's a fixed cost problem for us economists, we call it. When you have a small entity, you cannot have a manager with a high salary because you cannot pay him. So there is a huge problem of this kind. And probably if the government or other agencies, the EU or other, can help, maybe it's really in this aspect, help training, help, as you said, rightfully introducing technology. So these companies are really needing this. And I think a big help can come from outside, or maybe the kind of cooperative way between different companies trying to create kind of clusters where they will have a technical manager for 3-4 companies. We can imagine innovative aspects, but the firms at their own level are not able to introduce these changes, I think.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much for your speech and for your messages. Thank you. Well, I'll go on with Andre Martins. I would like him to introduce a little bit himself, because his point of view is quite interesting, in the sense that we are focusing on the use of robotics in a city environment. And my first general question is this one: what are the possible applications? Then I'll tell you that my second question would be the role of the community to help these projects so engaging, so challenging, to come realistic, to come to life. So, Andre, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you. So regarding the first question, I think there's a big role in robotics throughout the several roles in the city. I come from the economy and innovation general directory in the city council, and we identified the robotics and the emergent technologies like VR and artificial intelligence, and as a strategic sector, because we have a lot of universities. We aren't that much, as the slide says, we are an European capital, but we are just 500,000 inhabitants. So it's not a huge city. We have a very big metropolitan area, but the city itself is not that huge. And we identified robotics as one of those strategic sectors. And as Massimo, can you pass to the next slide, please? Yeah, the other one. As we are talking about tourism, this one also everybody knows Web Summit, and Web Summit is part of one of the tourist side of the city. Is the city have supported from the crisis, the 2008 crisis, on two aspects: the economic and the emergent economic side of the city, with a lot of startups and a very big entrepreneurial ecosystem that I'll show you after, and the tourist side. There was a very big investment. So what the project that I'm representing here does is kind of combining these two aspects. We have Massimo, can you put the next slide, please? Next one, please. This one already. Okay. So as I mentioned before, from the 500,000 inhabitants, you can see here that 137,000 are students, and so there's a big percentage of students and education going on here, and research. Along with the universities, there's a lot of research and development and a lot of entities doing R&D. So this is where robotics and where this part of innovation comes to life. So robotics, what we are trying to do, and I think this will go to your second question. What we are trying to do here is to develop an open innovation strategy where we, along with the companies that are developing products and services throughout the city, alongside with the universities and the students, we try to develop new products and new ideas and get the population involved. So this is it. The project, Lisbon Robotics, is based on 4 axes, 4 development axes, and one of them, 2 of them are pretty much this relationship between the innovation and the robotics sector and the population. One we call the hotspots axis, and the other one being the living lab. This is kind of trying to change the mindset of the whole population to receive these new perspectives and to work alongside them. So if anyone wants to try to use a drone as a delivery service, or to use a robot as a host to a cultural exhibition or a museum, it can reach out to us, and we try together to connect all the parts involved and help and facilitate all these things. So this is kind of the involvement that the city council is working on.
Okay, thank you, Andre. I have another small curiosity. I suppose that the community should engage in a very early stage, so from the very beginning of the process. How you think it is possible to do that? So what could be the tools, the instruments, the ways to do that? So to capture the citizens in order to be sure that they are part of the process from the very beginning.
Okay, so we have a lot of tools that we have been working on. For instance, we have in a not so technological, but in a broader way, we have one of the first participatory budgets in the European Union. I think it's going on for, I think, 10 years or so. So this is a way to get people, to get the civil society, the population involved in the budget, in the activities that the city will develop. For instance, this project, a lot of things, a lot of projects have arisen. We have a local Fab Lab run by the city council, who was a product of this participatory budget, and is a very useful tool for entrepreneurs and innovators to prototype their ideas, to do their first steps. Another one was the local cities incubator, Startup Lisboa, with the local city incubator, who hosts or who fosters a lot of tech companies, including robotics and so on. So I think this is one of the key features. The other one is, for instance, with this project, with the Lisbon Robotics project, we are very eager to work with the universities, but also with the smaller associations, smaller groups like clubs and things like that. As I mentioned, we are a small country, so it's kind of easier to gather, and the robotics community is not that big, so we try to get everybody involved. And if we reach out to, let's say, an association of tech teachers from the secondary school, we can access the kids from, I don't know, 14 or 15 years, and that way we can get everybody involved. So this is the other way. We have also a project that doesn't involve that the citizens in a first at first glance, but it involves the city. We have an acceleration program called Smart Open Lisboa that assesses the needs of companies and public institutions together, and gather a set of challenges that afterward that have a use case in the city that can be piloted in the city, throughout the city, and we then challenge the international group of startups, or whoever wants to challenge, to assess those challenges and figure out some solutions for the city itself. And then these solutions are piloted. These challenges need to be real problems that the city has, and this way we can use the city as a laboratory. We can get the big companies, the public operators, and the city council all involved in the economic development and of the city in a more accurate way.
Okay, thank you very much, Andre. I think that your inputs, your presentation will give a lot of stimulus to the debate, and in particular to tourism destinations in general. The case of Lisbon is quite important from this point of view. This is why I'll give the floor to Adriana Miotto now. She is one of the responsible of the G20 of the Italian seaside resorts. Adriana, I'll ask you to just introduce shortly this experience, but in particular what the 20 main seaside destinations in Italy are doing linked to this combination, ICT, robotics, maybe, no, and sustainability. So, Adriana.
Thank you, Mara. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, so briefly, the G20 is a platform of the most visited Italian seaside destinations, with at least 1 million of overnights per year. Take part of this network destinations from Veneto, the whole coast of Emilia-Romagna. Then we have Puglia, Sicily, Sardinia, Tuscany, and now we have also Liguria. The network was born in 2018, so it's a quite young project, and the aim was to identify common problems and share experiences. So as the colleagues have said so far, the coastal destinations are facing so many challenges, such as increasing competition, tourism impact, climate change, the maturity of season and sand product. Now we have also COVID. So the idea was we are the leading destinations, so we need to lead. We have to raise awareness of relevant issues. We want to stimulate change. We want to define strategic guidelines. And indeed, the name of the G20 has an S at the end, and the S stands for sea, sun, and sand, of course, but also for squadra, that it means team in English, but also solutions and sustainability. So when I say sustainability, I mean environment, economic, and social sustainability. So coming to your question, so we are addressing so many topics, probably too many, and actually we were trying to prioritize the actions and establish a dialogue with the institution on a regional and a national level. Then COVID showed up, so everything that we were doing was dramatically stopped, and summer was approaching. The mayors have to say they were really worried, but the network was super crucial in that period. Imagine that before COVID we were having a meeting one every, let's say, 3 or 4 months, and in that period we were having a meeting once or twice per week, and that was so important because they really needed to know what the others were doing in terms of public spaces, regulations. We were before talking about how to save jobs. That was a really, I mean, an issue in that moment. It's still an issue, and of course how to use ICT. So we were really let's say, exchange many best practices. So then the summer ended. We met up at the end of September, and we recognized that the topics that we were addressing before COVID, such as sustainable mobility, technology, product innovation, local tax system, safety, human capital, actually were more than ever. So now we are working on 2 levels. One is more, let's say, a political level. We are drafting down a specific framework of policy for coastal destination. We will present this document next year, and the idea is to arrive at recognition of a special status for seaside destination. And then meanwhile, we want to work on a very local level because we need this. And so before we were, I mean, I was listening to this very interesting presentation. So we were talking what the EU is doing on a European level. Then we went through a national level. So now I have to talk about the local level because we need to transfer. Before we were talking also about the ICT gap. I can say that it's really an issue, and we need to transfer. We need to educate, we need to make workshop with our public sector, but also with the private sector for these things, I would say. Then I can go on, I mean, but I don't know, Mari, if you have other questions, more specific about environmental, I don't know.
Well, no, it was just your reaction about what we understood on the importance of ICT, and so if some initiatives are going on for example, in terms of platforms for intelligence, local tourism observatories, so something able to monitor the situation. We have to speak now about crisis management, and in order to speak about crisis management, it is necessary to improve the intelligence. So just if you have some elements on this context, starting from the 20 destinations.
Yeah, so well, before the director of Andalucia lab, Jose Luis Cordoba, he was saying something like that, create a system, that we need to create a system that allows destinations to understand and anticipate what is happening. So, and I think that this is, I mean, this is what we need. And for this reason, exactly last Friday, so it's a very I mean, fresh news. The 20 destinations have decided to implement a dynamic observatory, and this will regard not only tourism statistics, but also environmental and economic data, because we need to really to know what is happening at a local level, at regional level, but also on a national level. And for instance, about an observatory about data, but also about best practices. For instance, we are trying to implement a waste system with electric vehicles. And then we want to also, for instance, to have some indicators about sustainable events. And then we want to support new forms of sustainable mobility. And then, but also going to, I mean, the economic part, we really want to monitor, like for instance, the everything that is related to the local tax system and unauthorized business. For instance, before someone was talking about cashless project, we really need this project. And then, of course, I mean, everything that we will need about for drafting guidelines. So, I mean, then this is, we will make a call. And so if anyone is interested to collaborate with this platform or this network, please drop us an email.
Okay, thank you very much, Adriana. Now I would ask Giovanni Maga to introduce a very crucial theme in our discussion about tourism and tourism network, which is the theme is health and safety situations. So first element would be the public engagement, the problem of how to inform the risk of a very effective communication. What could be the control measures in the different contexts? So, Giovanni, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. So, good morning to everyone. As you might suppose, I'm not an expert in exploitation of touristic or maritime resources. I am a virologist. So, the contribution I would like to give today is just to raise a few issues about the possible engagement of the community of our hosts in the touristic places in the context of the ongoing pandemic. I think we are all very well aware of the fact that the current pandemic will not disappear as by magic in the next summer season. We will certainly have still some circulation of the virus, and we all hope that this circulation will be low enough to allow, the exploitation of tourism and touristic industry. However, it is very important to remind that any control measure, any containment measure will not be effective without the engagement of the communities that are involved. And we have learned a few hard lessons in the last summer season, especially in our country, Italy, because in that period, from an epidemiological point of view, there was a real disaster. So many of the problems that we are facing now are coming from, unfortunately, a low containment that has happened during the past summer season. So the ability to face an ongoing epidemic in the community is always played at the interface between the engaged community and the responders, I would say. And the community we are talking about in this particular context is the community of the tourists, those people who are going, on vacation in different places. And this is a very complex community because it does not satisfy the usual definition of community in terms of homogeneity in geographical provenance, common values, common interests, common social identity, because tourists are coming from all over the world in the Mediterranean region. So we are already facing one complexity that we have to deal with. And the other face of the coin are the responders that in this particular context are the tourist operators and all those people who are working in order to make the tourist happy, feeling safe, and enjoying their vacation, and of course driving the economy in this particular sector. So if I can have the second slide, please. So how we can engage a community in terms of safety. First of all, it is important to work on the knowledge. I mean, we have to be sure that people who are coming in our places understand the risk exposure, understand the dynamics of the epidemic that is currently ongoing in that place, understand the safety measures that have to be implemented. And in this respect, I think ICT is extremely important because we cannot rely, we have learned it also, on the, let's say, institutional communication in order to properly reach such a complex community. So every touristic environment must be ready to provide and to convey this information to all the people who are coming in a way that is understandable, clear, and also that can be tailored upon the particular, let's say, geographical or social provenance of the people that we are hosting. And this might be very important because some social containment measure might be felt differently from people coming from different cultures or from different countries. So there is the need of, let's say, making an effort to make everyone understanding and accepting those, let's say, restrictions that might be necessary to put on place. And this can be done using, for example, in hotels, using graphical visuals, or using the internal TV that every room has in order to convey information and to, let's say, give a updated picture of the situation in order to make people feeling safe, feeling controlled, feeling, let's say, nursed in a sense of way. And in order to this communication to be effective, it is very important to work on the trust. Operators must be by themselves informed, experts, at least very competent in those particular measures and those particular settings they are interfacing with the hosts. In this way, people will also feel even more safe because they will realize that the operators that are, taking care of them are competent, informed, and expert people. And this is not trivial because, an epidemic is a very dynamic situation. So things can change very quickly. New measures can be implemented. So on the side of the operators, which I call the responders to this particular kind of health emergency, there must be a continuous education and a continuous information. And again, the information technology can help by using all the possible social networks, internal networks, in order to make, for example, people attending to hotels or to touristic places, beaches, and also tour operators, well informed and kept up to date to the ongoing situation. So by working on the community engagement, we can reach at least two important goals. First of all, we can make the tourists more effective in protecting themselves, which from an epidemiological and social point of view is a must. So it's also our duty, meaning all the components of the society, to be the most prepared, the most effective in protecting themselves and the other people. And the second important goal is that we can avoid the fear, the panic, the mistrust that sometimes has very heavily limited, touristic economy in the last season, because people didn't feel sure enough. So if we, in the advertisement of our, let's say, touristic offer, can already include competent, precise, clear information about risk and safety measures. And also on the place, we work constantly in providing this information to the tourist. I think this will be extremely useful, not only important, in order to be able to, let's say, live the next touristic season in the best way possible, both in terms of economy and in terms of safety. So that's basically the suggestion or the provocation I wanted to give you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. It's quite important. Me too. I think that without clear and precise information about that, it is difficult to be able to manage the emergencies in this context. Well, just your opinion about the fact that clear information, precise information, but also, how can I say, unique information. So no different voices saying different things around the networking of the tourism system. So what we experienced, I think, is also this fact. A lot of information, maybe, but quite different from them. So the effort should be also to have unique elements in order to be sure that information is correct.
Absolutely. So I think that this must be a sort of a coordinating effort with regional health authorities, so that the information are derived only from the, let's say, most competent and official sources, because the risk of having, as you said, these infodemics, as it is called.
Exactly.
So with many different views coming from maybe social networks or whatever other source, has the opposite effect of confusing people and making them feeling unsure. So the recommendation is to also make, again, a coordinated effort, not only in communicating to the tourists, but also in the preparation and education of the operators, which should be something that has to be taken care of, because sometimes we have seen also in the last season, at least in our country, not all the operators were prepared or were, let's say, aware of how to implement correctly the containment measures.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you very much, Giovanni. Now we have to focus on another topic quite relevant, which is, in my opinion, essential to guarantee a recovery and the restart of tourism. And the question is the point of view of tourists. We discussed a lot about mainly a supply side point of view, the destination, the tour operators, etc. But how is changing the behavior of tourists? So how can we imagine that the the use of new technologies from the tourist point of view, their experience is changing. And I remember what was said in the first session, the combination between digitalization and personalization. Linda, you work a lot on this context, on the social aspects, on the change of tourist behaviors, of consumer behavior, before then the tourist behavior. So how can we describe the IT in the tourist experience, but how it is changing this experience? And since we spoke at the very beginning about robotics, what's it's in your studies, in your work, this perception from the point of view of demand, what it is important in the point of view of demand. Linda, please.
Thank you very much, Mara. Yes, I think it's quite interesting to step back a while and say and look at the tourists, what will they do? I mean, we can create any kind of technology, but if they're not ready to use the technology, then there is no point in creating it. And you know, I remember the first studies when I was initially studying tourism were saying that virtual reality would have taken away tourism, and some scholars were saying we will end up wearing a helmet, a glove, and we're not moving from our sofas and traveling that way. What came out is that people are happy to have virtual reality, but virtual reality can be used for marketing purposes and people still want to travel. And the same thing is for augmented reality. Augmented reality can help to protect, for example, places that are environmentally very sensitive, to show tourists, to show visitors how it can be, or to show the hidden parts of historical sites, archaeological sites, or environmental protected areas, but still taking these people there. And people want to try, want to live, want to experience. And talking about robots, it was interesting because at the end of May, when Italy was in a full lockdown, with a colleague, Consuelo Nava from the University of Aosta, we tried to understand what safety measures Italian people would have been interested in once that Italy would have reopened intra-regional travels. And one of the options that we put there were actually two options. Were number one, robots at hotels, and number two, totems, so info points at destinations. We're thinking that what is better than having a robot, for example, serving you at the restaurant, so you don't have the physical contact with a waiter. We're also thinking that what's better to have a totem, so that instead of going into an office tourist information center, you would just talk or communicate to a panel. And what we found out is that people, Italians, was more than 1,500 people that answered our surveys. Italians are not interested into that. And they rather have distancing in tables. They rather would have a picnic area where to sit and have their lunch in takeaway mode than talking to technology. This doesn't mean that robots cannot work. Robots can work perfectly, but in the back office. So when we're talking about small, medium enterprises as well, we're talking to enterprises that are familiar in the management side, so they're family businesses that produce that kind of warmth and welcoming that only a family and person can give. So that personal contact is still there from the tourist perspective, the demand perspective, but we can still include in the operational side what is needed to help the hotel to perform better, to help the hotel to provide a better service and a better experience, for example. So ICT is there to help, but ICT or robotics cannot substitute the human touch that is still needed. And especially with COVID, some psychologists and some researchers from the University of Sapienza in Roma have surveyed Italians to check what is the level of distress, so anxiety, stress due to the COVID lockdown, and I found out they are very much stressed. So Italians have gone through a huge amount of stress during the lockdown. And so in that moment that we are reopening, now we found ourselves, what Giovanni Maga said, to educate the tourists how to protect themselves in a way that there's still, that we can put together their request to socialize again. I mean, Italians have been hardly hit by desocialization. Young people have reacted in a different way because of social media, but even them, they want that social contact. So robotics can come in, definitely, but in the backstage, it can come in helping perhaps to give information, to educate the tourists, but still we need to educate people also to have a safe social contact because they are in need of that.
Thank you, Linda. I would like to push a little bit the discussion about what was said in the first part, that in my opinion is quite interesting. So digitalization, which is not necessarily robotics, and personalization. So how can you see this link? I think that it is also useful to link the first part of this workshop with this panel discussion. So quite a short reaction on that.
Definitely. I mean, this is the turning part of what I said, because when we talk about ICT, we can talk about a lot of different innovation can happen, including, for example, IoT, which is connecting any mobile devices. And in that sense, when we use ICT or when we use IoT, for example, to improve the service to a point where the customer finds the value in it, then the customer is willing to engage in it. So the turning point is what is the added value to the customer when I'm proposing ICT or any kind of technological innovation. And in that sense, the customization of the service is pushing the tourists to use ICT. For example, IoT can help in hotels to create a memorable experience by including specific requested stimuli, sensory stimuli. There are hotels, Fraunhofer Institute, for example, is studying the hotel of the future, and is studying the hotel of the future through sensory stimuli. So what music the people wants to have while they're entering the rooms, what lights, what scents or perfumes are looked for. And when we give the tourist that possibility, then the tourist would engage into this kind of innovation. And this can be easily linked to sustainability as well, because we can, in a sense, give an added value to the tourist in changing the environment around him or herself to a point that it becomes a sustainable environment. And that is for hotels in specific, but also for our destinations. And what we have found out with our research that we did in May, for example, is that people or Italians are willing to have an app where they know the number of people that are visiting or how crowded a hotspot is or a specific attraction is. And that is interesting because we heard a lot on the Italian news, for example, about the Immunia or Immune app, with Italians not very much willing to download it. But when it comes to improving my own experience, because I'm going into a hotspot that is not so much crowded and I enjoy a little bit more the environment, the place, then I'm willing to be tracked. I'm tracking what I want other people to be tracked, and I'm tracking myself. And that is when I'm customizing my own experience and when I have an added value in the technology that I'm using. So in that sense, definitely we can use technology, and tourists are willing to use technology in that sense.
Okay, thank you very much. I would like to ask if some of our panelists want to react. Massimo?
Yeah, sorry, if you have a very quick reaction, because we are just almost out of time.
Yeah,
and we have still a talk by Agnieszka Kempi by EC. So maybe, George, if you can manage, if there are some questions. Sorry, but there are also some time needs.
Thank you, Massimo. Just to hurry a little bit up, please post your questions in the chat. And since we're running out of time, we are trying to take as much as we can. So yes, the floor is open. As I cannot see any question yet, I would like to address one just to open the floor for the rest of the attendees. I would like to ask Adriana, how do you cope with the different levels of adaptation in the different Italian coastal destination? I found it extremely useful and very cooperative to build up a project to coordinate the needs and the opportunities in a vast majority of the tourist areas in Italy. But in that sense, I assume that there are different levels of adaptation and willingness to take part or to adjust in new technologies, etc. How do you manage to harmonize that different levels in different coastal destinations?
Thank you. Well, actually, it's a quite big challenge because, as you said, there are different levels and different, let's say, willingness to adapt. And some destinations are more in ICT, others quite a bit less. But I have to say that what we are doing is to organize, we will organize in the following months some workshop for the private stakeholders. So for instance, we will organize a workshop in Taormina, and then we will invite private stakeholders and public stakeholders from other regions and from other destinations, and we will present what the other are doing. And we have done some of this workshop during the previous lockdown, and was working. So I mean, so it's not like we present what the other stakeholders of the same destination are doing, but what other from other region are doing, and this works. So we will keep doing on that.
Good, thank you. Any further questions from the attendees? Mara, Massimo, I don't know if we do not have any further questions, if we can speed up with the rest of the program of this workshop.
Yeah, I think that we can move to the last presentation.
May I thank all the panelists for their presentation. Thank you very much for the different inputs.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, everybody. And now the floor is to Agnieszka Kępny by EASME. And now I'm moving to.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Hello, can you hear me?
Oh, I have to look for your presentation, Agnieszka, because I missed it here. Oh, I have to take it on the web. Just a second, sorry.
Okay, no worries, but you can hear me, right?
Okay, MFF.
Yes, Agnieszka, thank you. We can hear you perfectly.
Okay, great.
You can start by presenting yourself while Massimo is fixing. Thank you very much.
Yes. Thanks to Linus, my colleague, who mentioned briefly the subject of the EMFF success stories earlier on this morning. I'm happy to be part of this event, and together with DG MARE, we are proud of the achievements of our beneficiaries in the tourism sector. Well, my name is Agnieszka Kępny, and I work closely with BlueRoses project on the successful implementation, but from the Commission side. I would like to start quickly my presentation by explaining what is EASME. So EASME is the executive agency of the European Commission for small and medium-sized enterprises, where we manage and implement funding on behalf of the European Commission. So in our portfolio, we have part of H2020, COSME and LIFE programs, which are well known, and also European Maritime and Fisheries Fund called EMFF, which I represent today. Our partner DG is indeed DG MARE, therefore I work closely with Linus and other colleagues from the Commission like Ramona and Miguel that you heard this morning, where we also contribute to the policy feedback, which means we present the project's outcomes and share success stories coming out from our program. I would like to let you know that the EASME, as of 2021, so next year will change the name and also its portfolio. We are not sure yet how the final setup will be and in which agency my program will be allocated to, as the talks are ongoing, and maybe even tomorrow we will have the decision by the college. Thank you. Next slide, please. Our program, so European Maritime Fisheries Fund, in addition to the common fisheries policy, focus on maritime policy, where blue economy calls are one of our key deliverables, among other thematic calls, for example, on maritime special planning, sea basin strategies, or marine knowledge. As mentioned by Linus already, we had launched in the past very successful calls for the underwater cultural heritage, nautical routes, and blue calls for blue labs and blue careers, aiming at developing transnational cooperation and enriching tourist offer with innovative products and routes in Europe. Since 2016, EMFF funding for blue economy calls for proposal has been progressively oriented towards business and investment in the blue economy. Our aim is that innovative ideas and proposals can finally find a way to the market, help economic players and stakeholders overcome so-called valley of death curve, so well known in the entrepreneurship world. And tourism sector plays here an important role. I would like to inform you that with the next mandate, so as of 2021, our name of the fund may change, but the negotiations are still ongoing, so we are not certain yet if, for example, aquaculture will be also as a name in our as a name part, main part in our fund. Next slide, please. Thank you. Blue Invest grants are our new brand coming from Blue Invest platform, which is DG MARE and EASME new blue economy assistance mechanism aiming at boosting innovation and investment in sustainable technologies for blue economy sector by supporting readiness and access to finance for early stage businesses, SMEs, and scale-ups. You can get more details and scheduled events on the link here on this slide. Last year, with a budget of over 22.5 million, targeting exclusively SMEs, we selected around 10 best projects and we placed few on the reserve list. Most of them has started already in September and October this year. But thinking about future, I am pleased to announce another edition of the Blue Economy called 2020 that will be published on the 12th of November, so just in 2 days. The conditions are very similar to the last call we had last year, and for more details, I kindly refer you to the call text that will be published on the Funding and Tender Opportunities portal of the Commission and you can see the direct link on the slide. I would like to inform you that we are organizing an information day, to be exact, on the 24th of November, and this will be an online event, and I invite you to check it out on the link provided on the slide and register if you wish. During the info day, you will be able to learn about policy background, core objectives, requirements, and practical information, how to apply and how to best prepare the application. Next slide, please. In addition, currently under COSME program, there is one call for proposals in preparation, which will focus on boosting the uptake of digitalization, innovation, new technologies in tourism through transnational cooperation and capacity building. The publication date is still unknown, but you can find a direct link to the portal here on the slide, where you will find more information about it in due time. Next slide, please. Lastly, I would like to tell you a little bit about EMFF Data Hub, which is a database of EMFF co-funded projects. You can see the direct link on the slide. The Data Hub includes a map and statistics. You can easily use your own filters and get personalized results depending on the topic of the interest, for example, blue economy, blue labs, or tourism. This is a very useful tool to see the geographical coverage of our program and projects we run. You can see the participating beneficiaries, which can also help you when you are looking for the partners to your consortium for your next project. I hope you will find it useful. Thank you. That's all from my side. I am here available for any questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Agnieszka. And thank you very much, everybody, for having attended this workshop. And I would leave the floor to Margherita to close the workshop.
Thank you, Massimo. This was unexpected, but I'm pleased to recognize that it was a very good starting point from the point of view of the core organizer. I hope they will share the same thoughts. I found it interesting how much has been shared from different perspectives in terms of stakeholders, and how much there is to still integrate. Like, for example, in terms of regulatory frameworks and creative solutions, rather than expertise, which I think we tackled very well. So again, thank you everybody for your participation. Thank you for the panelists, and sorry if sometimes we had to cut a little bit too quickly, but perhaps we exaggerate a little bit in having this 3-hour workshop online. It's a little bit too much, but we do hope you enjoy it. And please, as we said at the beginning, of course the recording and the presentation will be shared, but we would like also to keep you all engaged in the follow-ups. We are now planning to, let's say, add little by little something more, not only because the sector is clearly the target of this situation, but also to scale up to something more systemic. Having said that, a big thanks also to our rapporteurs, to our chair and the facilitators, and please, for every question and every connection you would like to make, do not hesitate to contact us, and we will keep in touch. So thank you again, Massimo, and thanks everybody.
Thank you to everybody.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Thank you.
Very much.
Goodbye. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye bye.
Thank you. Bye bye.